Hello, my name is George Harliono and I'm here with Portofolio. I wouldn't say there was a certain moment that I decided I'd become a professional pianist, but music is something I've enjoyed since I was very young. I've been playing piano for as long as I can remember. Music's such a huge part of my life. I left school when I was 13 years old, so I guess that was a pretty big decision point for me becoming a musician, because I took the decision not to take any more classes. Of course I did some homeschooling, but before this I went to a very academic school, and to take the decision to do music full-time I think is a big decision for any 13-year-old child. But for me, for sure, it was the correct decision, and I'm really happy sharing music with people, sharing music to audiences all over the world. It's something that is very rewarding for me. As a musician, growing up, there's been a lot of challenges. Of course, for me, my family isn't musical. I don't have, for example, like my father's a graphic designer and my mother, she studied economics. So perhaps for my whole family, not just for me, knowing which direction to take was difficult. But thankfully, because I've had some wonderful teachers, some wonderful mentors guiding me, my career has been able to grow in the way that it has. And I guess my concert life, my lifestyle in general, I'm traveling so much, I'm practicing long hours every day, 8 hours is what I try to do every day. And balancing that with a personal life, balancing that with everything is difficult. And yeah, of course, there's a lot of work, but it's something that I really enjoy. So these challenges, I get used to them because I find what I do very rewarding. I think many musicians, many pianists, we all look up to the great pianists of the 20th century, pianists like Horowitz, Gilels, but of course those are big inspirations for me. I think my main influence, my main inspiration has always been my teachers. As I said before, they've really supported me, they've guided me a lot. My family also have been so important in supporting me every step of the way. And I think for any, not just musicians, I mean anyone who has maybe a non-conventional career, like in sports, in music, having that support network, having your family, having good mentors, good guidance, that is, of course, having the dedication, having the discipline is important, but perhaps just as important as that is the people around you supporting you and guiding you. I've played in many places that I really enjoyed. I think one of my favorite halls in the world is the Great Hall of the Moscow Conservatory. That's such a historic stage, such a beautiful acoustic, one of my favorite places to perform. Recently I've been coming a lot to Indonesia. Playing in Jakarta is something really special because it's my mother's hometown, and the way that I feel welcomed here, the way that the audience reacts to my music. I mean, I don't think classical music is perhaps, maybe it's not a big part of Indonesian culture. I mean, it's Western classical music. It comes from Europe, it comes from Russia, but the fact that so many Indonesians here, they appreciate this music that I love, I feel really happy whenever I perform here, and I'm looking forward to coming more to Jakarta in the future, and also other cities. Like I'm going to Surabaya in a couple of weeks, and then hopefully later this year in Medan and Semarang as well. This is something that bothered me for a long, well, no, it didn't really like bother me. I wasn't like awake and like thinking about it. But no, like thinking about what should I do? Should I be practicing right before I go on stage? Should I be sleeping? Should I be meditating? But I don't really think about it so much. I just do what I want. If I want to be talking to some people before I go on stage, that's fine. If I'm eating, if I'm practicing, whatever. I think that people get too hung up on this because I think that if you have a very strict pre-performance ritual, then you go through this ritual every time, and then as you're going through this, your body's like, oh my god, I have a performance coming up. And you get more and more nervous as you go through this ritual, and I think that can have the opposite effect of what you actually want. So I just, I don't put too much thought into it now. I just do what I want, do how I feel, and I think that's the best way for me. Of course, I've listened to gamelan, and actually there's quite a few classical music pieces inspired by gamelan already. But yeah, I think that I do want to play more Indonesian music in the future because, as I said, it's my mother's heritage. It's something that I definitely want to explore more. And actually, it's very good music. The melodies are very nice. They're very beautiful. And I'm sure I'll be programming it in future performances. Practice. I just practice a lot. I think there's two aspects. Well, no, there's more than two aspects, but there's two main things that I think about. There's sort of practicing to play the pieces, like, of course, like practicing and getting in my fingers. But I think an aspect that lots of pianists, especially ones who aren't so experienced in performing, they forget is that there's a very big like mental aspect. Like you practice to play the piece and then you have to practice to perform the piece. And this is two different things because you can play the piece perfectly at home by yourself, but then when you're sitting in front of, I don't know, 1,000 people, 2,000 people, it's very different. So these are sort of I split my preparation into those two things. And yeah, it's a lot of hours of practice. And actually, as a classical musician, what I do is ridiculous because I play like hundreds and thousands, well, maybe thousands of notes in a concert. And my goal is to play every single note perfectly, musically. It's simply something that's impossible to achieve. I think that we as musicians, as artists in general, we're always striving for this perfection, and we will never achieve it. So I think in one way that makes art very frustrating. It's a frustrating career to have, but at the same time I think that makes it very unique and very beautiful because every single time you perform a piece of music, it's different. Even every time you listen to the same recording, the emotional experience is different. I think this is why classical music is any music in general it's very unique. I try not to be ambitious and think of music in that way, because if you think of art in an ambitious way, like I want to make lots of money, I want to sell lots of records, I want to perform to millions of people, I think that's not the right way to think about music or art in general. But that said, of course I love performing, I want to continue performing, and traveling. I really enjoy traveling and meeting new audiences, and performing to new audiences is something that's very fulfilling for me. I think as well as performing, I think I want to do more in music education. I want to do more to support young pianists, because I know how difficult it was for me to achieve what I've achieved. it's a very difficult path, and if I can help guide young musicians and give them advice, give them support, when I know that I needed that support when I was young, that's something that I'm really interested in doing. And also, I mean, I want to do more here in Jakarta, especially. There's so many, well, Jakarta's a huge city, Indonesia's a huge country, and there's so many young people learning music. And I think that the future of classical music here in Indonesia is very bright. Yeah, I mean, classical music is, if you want to take it as a career, it's a very difficult career to take, but if your heart is set on it, of course practice is important. I think that, like, when I was growing up and when other pianists are growing up in their teachers and in their conservatories or wherever, so there's a lot of pressure to be practicing, a lot of pressure to perform at your best. And then I remember, especially when I was maybe 14, 15, 16, I think my toughest critic was myself. I was always wanting to play perfectly, wanting to play every single note correctly. And in the end, this is detrimental. The more you worry about making mistakes, the more mistakes you make, unfortunately. So I think my advice is to, whenever you're performing, or even in your practice, always enjoy the music that you're playing. Don't take things too seriously. I mean, you're playing music, and if you can't enjoy the music, you can't appreciate the beauty of the music that you're creating, then I think it's impossible for the people listening to you playing your music, it's impossible for them to enjoy the music that you're making. Thank you, Portofolio, for having me. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and comment.